Hello, friends. Welcome back to another edition of The Drive, brought to you by oddschecker. I am Geoff Fienberg. With me is Andy Lack. Andy, Torrey Pines is in the past. Another big winner. Elevated event season with Phoenix and Riviera up next, right? Big dogs hopefully about to get hunting. I've made one bet so far. Looking forward to breaking down Pebble Beach with you, sir.
Yeah, absolutely. We haven't seen Pebble. We haven't seen the best players in the world. And I guess I should throw the caveat on the best PGA Tour players in the world because we're not getting the full gamut like we would at a major. But we haven't seen this strong of a field at Pebble since the 2019 US Open, which I was in attendance for. So I think that this opportunity, yep, you got the flag in the background there as well. So I think that this has, especially if we get some spicy weather, I think this has the opportunity to be one of the best non-major events of the season because getting Rory and Hovland and Scheffler and Spieth and Homa at Pebble Beach for the PGA Tour, like that's like the Cowboys in the playoffs. Like
Yeah.
it's just safe. It's bankable. And that's why I have so much confusion about why Liv chose to open their season this week. There are so many PGA Tour duds. Why are you going against the one safe one where it's like you just put Rory and Spieth at Pebble and like it's gonna be fine. So I would say long-winded way of saying I'm pretty pumped for this week, man.
One of the most beautiful courses, if not the most beautiful course in the world, with an elevated field. I guess before we get into the board, Andy, let me just ask you this holistically about this week,
Mhm.
because we haven't had this sort of talent level here in the past few years. Do you feel like the strategy that worked at the US Open is how you want to attack this, as in like it's a US Open course? Or are we of the mind that any sort of player profile can rise here, and historically when it's not an elevated field, it is the Tom Hoagie profile type golfers who we might look to at Pebble Beach? So I just like your thoughts on that before we talk about the big boys.
Yeah, I think it's somewhere in between. We're not going to get US Open, USGA conditions, but we are going to get some pretty spicy weather, Geoff. Like I'm looking at the forecast right now, and it's going to be cold, windy, and rainy, right? And if I know anything about, the networks and CBS, this is a massive event for them. Any delays are a nightmare. They need that Sunday 3 to 6 p.m. window, especially with no football on the docket this week for CBS. And the other thing that we need to consider, Geoff, is that there's no more amateurs on the weekend. So part of the reason why the course setup has been so easy at Pebble in the past is because for pace of play concerns, you have to put the pins in the middle of every single green because it's not just Viktor Hovland approaching these greens, it's also Bill Murray. But now that there's no amateurs over the weekend, there's no excuse for them not to set it up a little bit harder and a little bit spicier. So no, I don't think it's going to be US Open conditions per se. But I think a big dog is going to win. Now I've been saying that for the last 4 weeks. But we're probably going to get somewhere in between. And that's largely because of the two key factors that I mentioned: tougher weather and no amateurs on the weekend.
So I was ready to bet a super elite this morning, and then sort of saw the weather and was like, I think I need to rein this back, because this could be a variable that maybe I don't want to bet into first thing on a Monday morning, because if you get caught in a draw, your whole thing could go up in smoke quickly. But I am with you clearly. Like, I've been tweeting a couple times the Stan Marsh meme. I didn't hear no bell. Okay. I know the 100-to-1s are hitting, but I didn't hear no bell, folks. I'm still going to take the body blows, play in the range that I like to play, that I prefer to play, that I've had my success playing. So let's get right into it. Elevated field, Pebble Beach. Rory is here. He is the favorite, 8-1, followed by Scotty at 850, Hovland at plus 1200. Xander coming in at 14, followed by Spieth at Homa and Cantley round out the guys in the 20s. I'll throw Morikawa and JT in there just for conversation.
Yeah.
So, you know what? I'm taking it all the way to 30. We're throwing Ludwig in there coming in at 28. A lot of appetizing options, Andy. I made the comment last week that I don't like Patrick Cantlay when he is sort of the leader on the tote board. I like Patrick Cantlay when he's at a place where he's shown great course history, and it's the same number that if we want to bet Patrick Cantlay at a PGA championship, we'd have to bet. So it's Patrick Cantlay at 20-1, but the big horse I was looking to bet first thing in the morning is Viktor Hovland, and I think you can talk me into it.
Yeah. I'm all in on Vic at 12. And here's the case. I mean, the case is simple. This is a guy who won the U.S. Amateur at Pebble Beach. This is also a guy that was the low amateur at the 2019 U.S. Open at Pebble Beach, where he gained over 10 strokes ball striking. This is also a guy that has finished top 15 at the AT&T Pebble Beach Pro-Am before as well. So the only two players in the field, and they're the two guys I bet first thing on Monday morning, that have played well at Pebble in every single condition that you want to throw at them. You think this is going to be super hard? I went to that 2019 US Open. It was cold. It was windy. It was tougher conditions. You want to throw out, hey, maybe the weather subsides a little bit and we get an easier PGA Tour setup. Oh, Viktor Hovland's played well at that version of Pebble Beach too. But I just think this guy is the safest combination of course fit and number in this field. I think that if you're going to pay that price for Rory or Scheffler, God, you better do it at a course where their driver matters. Yeah. And Pebble Beach is just not one of them. Viktor Hovland happens to have a sneaky, unbelievable POA putting resume. For whatever reason, he putts really well on the West Coast. He putts well at Riviera. He putts well at Pebble Beach. He putts well at Torrey Pines. He putts well on slower greens like Mayakoba. We've seen Hovland win multiple times on shorter, less than driver courses like Mayakoba and Pebble Beach. This is a slam spot for me at 12-1. So I'm all in on your boy, Viktor at 12 here.
It would be a lovely victory for Vic. Let me get your take on this, Andy, because I sort of seen it around and it does make a lot of sense, but we don't have a sample size to sort of actually quantify it. Last year being the first year at elevated events where any elite player would play in an elevated event. So it would take elite players to places they don't historically play. And what we saw last year is the guys that historically play the venues where they have the elevated events were the players that played well there. We have a lot of guys who would never be in this event here this week simply because it's elevated, but you have identified playing the guys who really do just show up to this course regardless. As I mentioned, Cantlay, you mentioned Hovland, and Jordan Spieth will be another incredibly popular player this week for almost those exact reasons.
Yeah, so I'm pot committed with Hovland 12 and another guy who we'll get to shortly at 40. But if I wasn't going the Hovland route, I think the most logical card construction is Cantlay Spieth, right? And I say that as a guy, or Cantlay Homa. Like, let's not forget about Homa here. You want to talk about the best West Coast POA putter in the field. It's not Cantlay, it's not Spieth, it's Homa. And I know that Homa doesn't have quite the track record that Spieth and Cantlay do at Pebble Beach. He's been good. Like, Homa's been great at Pebble Beach. So I would say some formulation of those three makes sense. I'm probably a bit higher on Ludwig and JT than most this week, for the sole reason of, in the case of Ludwig, he got his sea legs under him on POA. My only concern with Ludwig last week at Torrey was I've never seen him putt before at POA. And hey, he missed a couple short putts that prevented him from being in contention, right? And which was kind of what
you spotlighted that last week. I still went in there and bet Ludwig anyway, only to say even great POA players seem to have found a bit of a cluster expletive on the shorties last week. So let's move it back a little into the range that I have certainly highlighted, into the range you have another bet in. A lot of attractive options. Looking at the odds checker grid, Matty Fitzpatrick now seeing 35 being the top number. Tony Finau 35, Cam Young 40, Sam Burns 40, Sungjae Im 40, Tommy Fleetwood 40. Ben Ann 50, Jason Day 50. I think this could be a popular range. If you want to expand on it, you can. I'll be honest, the bet that I made, I assume it's popular, but if it's going to be a little sloppy, the course fit seems perfect. I took the Matty Fitz 40-1 out of the gate this morning. And if you know me, I am circling the Fleetwood 40s off the win in Europe. He has played well here. I could trust him, I guess, in a bit of a weird putting contest that maybe it neutralizes for him. So Fitz and Fleetwood would be the players in this range that I'm looking to fire on, Andy.
Yep, I'm completely right there with you, man. Fitz was my first bet this morning, and let's get we are so due. I
We bet
wasn't
him last year as a community. I think he missed the cut here.
right. Well, he has played well here in the past. I bet him here every year. Because I just think this is such a perfect golf course for him. Fitz, you mentioned the weather, with as same as Hovland. Fitz is, probably the only guy in this field that's finished top 15 again outside of Hovland at both a US Open Pebble Beach and a regular PGA Tour setup at Pebble Beach. I think he can win on this golf course if the weather subsides. I like him even better at this golf course if we get super crazy weather conditions, right? We just very recently, Geoff, I know it's DP World Tour, so we weren't following it probably as closely, but the Alfred Dunhill in October, that tournament, it just rained for 4 days straight. And who was the last man standing? It was Fitzpatrick, right? So I think that he's a pretty safe guy in terms of like sloppy weather conditions, small greens, shorter course. I mean, the last time, Geoff, we went to a shorter, less than driver course that emphasized wedge play with the signature field, Matt Fitzpatrick won the Heritage, right? Well, Matt Fitzpatrick was the last man standing. So I think there's a ton to like about Fitzpatrick this week, and him and Hovland, those are my guys.
If this wasn't an elevated event and a lot of these super high-end players weren't here and Fitzpatrick was still here at like 18, 16, 20-1, I think I'd still be betting him.
Yeah, me too.
I think I would. So we seem pretty committed at the top. It is an elevated field, but I don't know. The dogs are having their day, Andy. Even something 80-1 wouldn't feel as big as recently, but anything in and around here, Hideki, Adam Scott, Sahith, seems like, he's the sort of boomer bust player, or are you just anything north of 100 that you would consider catching your eye?
Yeah, I'm drawing my line in the sand at 90, and I'll be brief with these two guys. Sahith at 90 is just a bad number. Like, I don't understand. I'm a Cam Young apologist. Okay. Nobody likes to dive into Cam Young's distance to apex stats and data golf page like me. He is the Justin Herbert of golf, right? Like the analytics nerds like myself just gush over Cam Young all freaking day. That guy has every tool in the shed.
No big wins,
can
though.
Make all the throws, but without the big wins. In no universe should Cam Young be half the price of Sahith Theegala on the frickin' West Coast, man. Sahith is 90-1. I watched it. I followed him pretty closely at Torrey Pines last week. I know that the result didn't end in the way that we wanted it to. He's still an eye test guy for me. Like Sahith can frickin' play. He's ready to win this type of event, in my opinion. He's won on the West Coast this fall on a similarly short West Coast POA course that emphasizes wedge play at Silverado. And you can spray it a little bit more off the tee, which I like as well. So I'm in on Sahith Theegala. Real quick, final guy. I think my biggest disagreement with the golf betting community and potentially the market is that Wyndham Clark is really good. And he's a real guy, and he's not going to go quietly into the night. Maybe my numbers are just wrong, but I just don't understand how we are less than 6 months removed from the last two major championships, and Wyndham Clark and Brian Harmon are double the number of Beau Hossler.
Yeah, Beau's been the whipping boy.
I just don't understand how we got here. Wyndham Clark is amazing. He's my numbers continue to love him. He's one of the best putters in this field inside 15 feet. He's had a tremendous amount of success in California. He's a great, like sneaky great wedge and long iron player as well. This course devalues middle iron play. So you give me Wyndham Clark at 90-1 and Sahith at 90-1. I just think you have to bet those and move on.
So I really love both of your thoughts on both of those players. Wyndham, it does seem to be like there's a consensus on him, 80, 90-1 across the board. Sahith is where you use that odds checker grade and you find yourself the biggest number, because I'm seeing it as high as 90, as low as 66-1. Obviously, if you want in on him, get in on that 90. And a lot of people I trust sort of earmark him and Spieth as the courses that work. Could be very similar. Spieth will be very popular this week. Why not try Sahith? 90-1. Great shout out, Andy. I'll go over 100-1. This will be incredibly popular. He's a guy that I piggybacked with Matthew Fitzpatrick at many previous Pebble Beach Pro-Ams, and that's Mav McNeely. He's showing up at 200-1 on the odds checker grade, as low as 120. If you can play it with the each ways and the placings, that's probably something you might want to do. But I am going to be on the public consensus of Mav McNeely for a little sprinkle this week. That's really it for me, Andy. Fitz in the middle, Cantley or Hov, near the top. And that is sort of what I'm looking at. How about you? It's Hovland, it's Fitz, it's Sahith, it's Wyndham, right?
That's it. That's the card, man. 12, 40, 90, 90. I feel pretty good about it. Those are the guys I'm going to battle with. Let's have a week, my friend. This is, like I said, I think this has the potential to be a super, super good one.
Yeah, it should be great entertainment anyway. The sights of Pebble Beach with a super elite field going at it. Andy, we'll be talking next week. It'll be Super Bowl week. It'll be Waste Management. Odds Checker will have you covered with all of it, be it football, be it the golf, college basketball, NBA, NHL, all your needs. We'll have you here. Smash that like button for us. We'll be back next week talking more PGA Tour. For Andy, I'm Geoff. We're out.